Perhaps you know the example of a friend having exactly the same song in mind while it hasn't physically been sung or played. Or that someone intuitively knows that a grandma living far away suddenly died. Or in your jazz band, one of your fellow players seems to know exactly what you're going to do. To me, those are signs that there are networks active that are invisible and can be measured, but they do manifest to our consciousness. Recently, I saw this documentary about swarms of birds performing a dance like one organism without a central leader. You could say that each cell in our body, or each bird in the swarm, has a certain amount of intelligence, an ability to respond, and a memory. The image of the human body as a complex marionette with the brain as the main control room seems a bit outdated. In life, there's much more that we don't really comprehend. For instance, what's the difference between a dead and a living body? We come up with terms like bodily energy. In India they call it prana, in China they call it chi, and in the West you find the term orgone. This energy can flow, as you probably experienced, but it's not possible to collect it in a pot. In short, our language and understanding of the things happening in our cells is at least limited. In this video, I want to pay attention to the role of our bones in our movements. In another video, I showed this so-called tensegrity, in which the sticks represent the bones and the rubber bands the muscles. And I used it to clarify that everything in the body is connected. However, the representation of the bones as dead sticks is not entirely correct. It's in fact totally incorrect. Like in living wood, the bones are conductors of fluids, electricity, prana, information, and perhaps even more. Bones can communicate, and if the movement is perfectly in balance, you reach maximum results with minimal efforts. I like this example of the 1 and 6 inch punches by Bruce Lee. His fist is only an inch away from the opponent's chest, but he drops into a chair that's about 2 meters away. This is much more than just an arm movement. The whole body participates, and I think this focus of energy starts at the feet. Something similar happens when a cat jumps on a 2-meter high fence. It does so effortlessly. A cat can simply do this. It didn't take any yoga or karate class. In biology class, we've all seen a skeleton once, and if you would shake it, it would be a loose rattling effect. Twisting an arm or your spine is something that doesn't need to take a lot of effort at all. But the problem is that movement and cooperation of the bones is often blocked by muscles and tendons that are too tight. I'd like to demonstrate it with a classic yoga exercise. I can twist my spine by using my arms to initiate the movement. This works quite well and it opens up my chest nicely, but the movement is much easier if I just leave my muscles alone and make the bones do the work. Vertebra by vertebra, I twist a few degrees and muscles hardly participate. After having done this a few times, I kind of get into it, and everything goes almost by itself. When I stand up, I feel a lot of space and freedom because I let go of something. It usually puts a smile on my face. Finding this freedom again is harder than you think, since we are so occupied with the things we are doing or must do. This exercise requires a kind of concentration in which you have to leave and almost disable your muscles. To me, this almost feels like tuning in on another kind of Wi-Fi network, and it always clears my mind, makes me come into a kind of silence. I'd like to call this the soul network, the source of inspiration. When I managed to tune in on this, the sound on my trumpet got milder and more effective, and in improvisations my ideas came more easily. My fellow musicians also noticed the change. The soul, the spontaneity, is the part that we cannot control. It's a kind of flow, a layer where our subconscious is in charge. It's like the water coming down from the mountain and we can't help it. We can change the banks of the river and change the direction of the flow. We can also influence the speed of the flow by narrowing it, similar to what Bruce Lee did. However, the content of the river still simply is the water. In everything that we create or do, we find elements of content, shape, and spontaneity. When we listen to a jazz concert, the compositions are the content, and content is related to what we feel. You could feel like you want to sing along with the melody, or perhaps the lyrics touch something that relates to your own life. Or maybe you like the sound of a certain instrument. The feel of the music can get you going and make you feel moved. But of course, not all executions of the tune are the same. To play a piece, you need at least a certain amount of technique. To shape the music, we need some dexterity, we need good intonation, control of the tempo, pronunciation is important, the arrangement, the dynamics, etc. These aspects can be verbalized best, that's why technique in music lessons consume up a relatively big part of the time. Shape is more tangible than feel. A performance can be technically perfect but not move a hair on your arm, while a less perfect execution gives you the goosebumps. Finally, there's this intangible layer of the spontaneity, the soul. To me, that's in the feel of the drummer, the sound of the player, the groove of the band, the touch of the pianist, plus the extent in which the soloists manage to draw from the source that is not connected with scales and pre-programmed licks. To me, that is the same source that I tune into when I'm doing those exercises to free my skeleton. The trinity of content, shape, and soul is also present in the body. The shaping muscle change are the ones that turn us inside or outside. We express or shape our body with it, but we also use our limbs to shape things in the outside world. Think about bringing clay into a certain form, or giving an athletic performance. Content relates to feeling, meaning that what we feel before we give words to it or judge it. Music can make you feel great, but a strong choral also creates a physical sensation in your body. That energy or tension sits usually in your trunk. When you have an argument with your girlfriend, your knee won't hurt. You'd more likely feel it in your belly, your chest, or your heart region. The muscle chains that are associated with feeling are the ones that carry us and keep us standing up. By the way, those chains run through your whole body from your feet to your hands. A more complete term is muscle and joint change, and this range of thoughts comes from the French and Belgian osteopathy. Both the two chain pairs of feeling and shaping work interrelated, which is called antagonistic in medical terms. You know this probably from the biceps and the triceps. When one muscle pulls, the other releases. The soul change works simultaneously, which is called synchronistic. In the first place, the spontaneity is associated with the spine. In ancient yoga writings, you find that too. The so-called Kundalini is represented as a snake that rises up along your spine when the creative energy is awoken. I felt the shivers down my spine, is the saying, and that usually happens when we feel moved by something. Another part of the soul change are the rhythmic muscles. First, think about the diaphragm that takes care of the breathing, like a pump. The word inspiration clearly expresses the creative factor here. Another rhythmic muscle is the psoas, which is our tenderloin. It's a big muscle that goes through your pelvis and lifts your leg when running. The psoas and the diaphragm connect in the middle of your spine. Working on these rhythmical muscle change could very well improve your timing. Let me try to bring this line of thought back to the music lesson. The technical part is the easiest. That's all about form, how we shape the music. We all know that you have to practice your connections between the notes you read, your fingering, and your pitch connection. But you can overdo this. With spectacular technique you can easily show off, but then you might forget to connect to the frequency of the soul. You can practice your spontaneity. Simple muscle chain exercises could help, but putting the chord changes or the sheet music aside could also be a good start. And then we have the layer of feel. As you know, that's about the content of the music, that what we feel before we create our opinion. In music lessons, it's important that you work with a style that appeals to you. When you have to play music that doesn't make you feel anything, learning won't go very successfully. At this level, we have to realize that we tense a number of muscles when we don't want to feel something. Sometimes this tension has built up over years, and you are so used to it that you don't even realize that the tension exists. When you manage to release it, you might get sensitive to other music, and the sound on your instrument, as well as your timing, could very well change.